So if we make a start, the first session this morning is Programme Overview and Assessment. And we're very mindful that we will be speaking a lot to you today and asking you to take a lot in. So we will give you breaks, and we're particularly mindful of people who are new to the programmes. I want to start by just putting everything in context and just looking at the two programmes and what they have achieved to date. And this slide depicts some of the investments made under previous Interreg programmes, Interreg 4A. So we have the Northwest Science Park in Derry, which is a collaboration between Science Park and Letterkenny Institute Technology. Biomara project, which is an environmental, an environmental project involving Scottish partners but the entire eligible region. Crest Centre, which we were lucky enough to be in the other day, which is an innovation centre in Enniskillen. And then the Telus Border project, which was a mapping project which covered the entire eligible area and which they discovered gold. Okay. Peace, one of our most iconic investments under Peace 3 and soon to be a Royal Mail stamp, was the Peace Bridge in Derry, Londonderry. Skenos Centre in East Belfast is an example of a shared space funded under Peace 3, and then we have in the third photograph there an example of some of the Peace Partnership works. And of course we are lucky enough to be sitting in another one of the iconic investments made under Peace 3, Casa Saunderson. Okay? So what we're going to look at today, just to give you a brief indication, we're going to look at an overview of both Interreg 5 and in Peace 4. We're going to discuss the key differences for 2014 to 2023 funding period. We're going to look at the applicant profiles, so the types of organisations which can apply for these programmes. Give you some indication of the application process, which is a two-stage process this time, what the assessment criteria will be for your projects, and then give you an indication of the programme status. Okay, and just to start by giving the context of how these programmes have been developed and what has fed into that process. Firstly, the EU 2020 strategy and the Commission have really looked to ensure that the architecture of these programmes will ensure that they contribute to smart, sustainable and inclusive growth. Any of you who've been involved in either Peace or Interreg previously will know that both programmes are governed by EU regulations, so there are a suite of regulations under which these programmes relate to. You yourselves, and many of you, will have contributed to the content of the programmes because there were two public consultation exercises undertaken. The first in 2012 related to Interreg 4A and Peace 3, was really to get a sense of how those programmes had worked and the impact they'd had and the learning that we could take from those. And then in June 2014, the new draft programmes, Interreg 5 and Peace 4, there were public consultations about both programmes. EC position papers. So the Commission have produced position papers for all their member states, and those papers detailed the Commission's view on what could be the priority areas for investment in those member states. So with regard to our programmes, the Ireland and UK position papers were accessed. A socio-economic profile of the region was undertaken by the Department of Finance and Personnel in Northern Ireland, so that the details of that contributed to the design of the programmes. And then these programmes involve three member states. Well, Interreg involves Scotland, Ireland and Northern Ireland. Peace involves Northern Ireland and Ireland. So a lot of consultation was undertaken with representatives of the member states to ascertain what the priorities for each of those member states were and how these programmes might be designed to align those individual priorities. So that will give you a sense of what has contributed to the development of the programmes. What's different for the incoming programmes? And in one word, these programmes will be much more strategic in nature. The Commission decided that there were a number of key things that they wanted to achieve from these programmes, and in order to ensure that happened, what they did was they laid down 11 individual thematic areas upon which investment could be based. And any of you who are involved in the public consultation, both public consultation held, will have seen those. So the guidance and regulation states that each eligible region can pick no more than 4 of those thematic areas and no fewer than 2. Okay? Cooperation needs to be more intense in the incoming programmes, and cooperation really underpins what these programmes are about. They're about working together to achieve more than could be achieved by working independently, and they have to run central to what these programmes are trying to achieve. Peace can operate on a single jurisdiction basis where the contribution to programme outputs and results can be demonstrated, but we'll look at that in a little more detail moving on. Okay? The other word that you will hear me saying many times this morning is results, and that's because these programmes have been designed to be very result orientated, and that is directed by the Commission. Each of the themes that we will have selected will have a set result indicator or stroke indicators and a number of output indicators. So those have been selected using intervention logic, and we'll look later at how that transcribes, but I think the thing to remember is when thinking of a result indicator, a result is what the positive change that we want to see happen across the eligible region, and the output is the action that we will undertake to contribute to that result. Okay? And these are very important because according to the regulations, if we do not achieve 65% of our result output indicators, there will be financial penalty imposed upon the programme. So we will be talking about that in a bit more detail today. It's incredibly important. Okay, who can apply? I suppose this is the good news, because I would imagine as you go down through that fairly extensive list that you will find a place for your organisation. So you can see there national, regional, local authorities, development agencies, the education sector, NGOs, business support agencies, public, other relevant public agencies and SMEs. And basically what to consider here is the emphasis is not on the type of organisation who would be applying, but the type of project that they are promoting and whether or not that fits with the programme. So if you are an organisation who can develop a project that will do that, the likelihood is you will be eligible. Okay. We've already spoken about cooperation, and these projects are developed and need to be developed in order to achieve that in partnership. So just to give you an overview of the partnership formation, the regulations state that all projects must have a lead partner. Okay, and the definition for that would be leads in the implementation of a project supported by the programmes. Okay? A partner is closely involved in the implementation of the project, coordinated by the lead partner. And then a final recipient may benefit financially from the project but may not necessarily have been involved in its management. And we'll be coming back to the responsibilities of the lead partner and what they are later on. Okay. So just a very brief overview of the Interreg programme. So the eligible area is Northern Ireland, Western Scotland and the border region of Ireland. And the value of the incoming programme is €240 million. So it's a sizable investment in the region. Up to 85% maximum intervention rate. So there will be a 15% match funding requirement. And we will speak later about how that match funding can be constituted. As in the current programme, state aid rules apply to all funded projects and initiatives. 20% of the programme budget can be spent outside the eligible area if the benefits of that investment are felt within and evident within the eligible area. Projects must involve at least 2 member states, so UK and Ireland, and demonstrate cross-border cooperation. So if we look at that, your project partnership configuration can include the border region of Ireland and Northern Ireland, the border region of Ireland and Western Scotland, or all 3 partners. And the advice in terms of Interregs specifically is, if possible, and it's a challenge to work across the entire jurisdiction, but projects will be welcomed that have as broad a regional coverage as possible, and we would encourage you to start, if possible, thinking about involving Scottish partners, and to be mindful that the steering committee, which is made up of representatives of all the member states and then social partners from all the member states. So Scotland is represented on that steering committee, so important to be mindful of that. Okay. And just to look at the thematic areas selected for inclusion within Interreg. Research and innovation, so €60 million allocation for that. Environment, protection and resource efficiency, €72 million. Health, which comes under the social exclusion and combating poverty thematic area, so €53 million allocated for that. And then sustainable transport at €40 million. Okay, and I think important to remember, and certainly I have fallen prey to this myself, that we think that almost we're the only Interreg programme. We are one of 60 across all the member states, so this programme is very common across Europe. The Peace Programme, which is actually unique to our region, so we are the only peace programme, or the only programme of this nature across all of the member states, and the Commission have allocated this funding to really improve and contribute to peace and reconciliation across the eligible area. And in order to achieve that, they want to see action supported that will contribute to the creation of a more cohesive society. So we'll come back to that in a little more detail later. But just to re-emphasise again that the eligible area for the Peace Programme is Northern Ireland and the border region of Ireland only. The programme value is €229 million. Similar to Interreg, there is an 85% maximum intervention rate, but it is likely, although not confirmed as of yet, but central government will present the 15% match funding for peace. Again, 20% of the programme budget can be spent outside the eligible area, but the benefits of that investment must be felt within the region. Okay. And single jurisdiction projects can be supported within Peace 4, but they must contribute to what the set programme results and outputs are. Okay. Okay, so the types of activities to be supported under Peace. The Commission, in the appropriate regulations, stated that the Peace Programme activities must be centralised within combating social inclusion and combating poverty. So the individual themes selected are shared education, children and young people, shared space and services, and building positive relations at the local level. Okay. With regard to Peace 4, similar to the current programme, Peace 3, there will be peace action plans, so local peace action plans. So local authority partnerships will be asked to prepare peace action plans, and there will be detailed guidance issued following the Peace 4 programme approval. But just to be mindful that those plans should be structured to build on the positive experience in the current programme, and they should be underpinned by a strong partnership approach, and where possible complement other local government initiatives such as community planning. Okay, so that will mean that we will have 11 peace partnership plans in Northern Ireland and 6 along the border region of Ireland. What kind of projects can be supported? And just to give you a very brief overview, the results and outputs of the projects must be in line with those of the programme. Okay? Projects must demonstrate cross-border within Interreg and cross-community and cross-border within Peace. Applicants must evidence good corporate governance and partnership. Projects must have a high quality of project design, and now more than ever, projects should really work to demonstrate value for money, and projects must contribute to sustainable development and equality. To be mindful that the SEUPB will be undertaking an eligibility check at both stages, stage 1 and stage 2. And just to give you a sense of what that will include, The partnership requirements including authorisation. So to check that this project is obviously authorised at the highest level within the partner organisations. Ensure that projects are aligned with the result and output orientation. There will be a financial capacity and capability check undertaken with regard to the lead partner, and that will be commensurate with the scale of the funding being applied for. It must be evident that there is meaningful cooperation underpinning the project, and if match funding isn't in place, that there is a plan in place as to how match funding will be secured. The project has to be obviously timescale compatible with the programme, so it has to be delivered within the programme time span, and then the beneficiaries and activities must be compliant with EU regulations. Okay. In the incoming programmes, there will be a two-stage application process, and I think that's to be welcomed by applicants because it will mean that your resources aren't overstretched in terms of really developing a project that is not going to go through. So you will know at stage one whether or not your project has the potential to go through to stage two. The initial stage one will just be initial application assessment, and then stage two will be a much more detailed analysis of your project. So if we just look at that in a bit more detail. In stage one, after a call for applications, there will be 4 to 6 weeks for you to prepare an initial online application form. And that is likely to encompass 6 questions, 1 which is an overview of your project, and then 5 others which relate to the assessment criteria, which we'll look at in a moment. So there will be a steering committee decision within 12 weeks of you submitting your application. Important now just to be mindful of what the criteria that will be utilised to assess stage 1 are. So if we look at those, there's 5. Result and output orientation, your quality of project design, your cross-border cooperation, and obviously in peace, that will be cross-community cooperation, your governance and partnership arrangements, and your value for money. And you'll see there, they're all equally weighted at 20%. And we thought useful just to give you an example of those questions that are likely to be asked within stage 1, related to result orientation, so how your project will contribute towards achieving the stated results and outputs of the call. Cross-border value, added value. So why is it important that your project be done on a cross-border basis? Partnership development, so you'll need to illustrate how is the proposed partnership the best possible delivery mechanism for the project. So it's just to be getting you thinking of, even at this stage, the types of questions that you're going to have to provide answers to. If you are successful and move on to stage 2, following the call for applications, you will have to prepare a detailed business plan. Okay, and then following submission of that, you will have a steering committee decision within 24 weeks. Now that includes 6 weeks to prepare your plan, and if you do need more, my understanding is that will be given to you, but then there will be a knock-on effect in terms of how long it takes for your project to be assessed. Okay. Now, the criteria at stage 2 are very similar to those at stage 1, apart from the inclusion of the cross-cutting themes there, which are sustainable development and equality. So your project is going to have to illustrate how it contributes to those 2 cross-cutting themes. Business plan components, and I'm sure most people have had the joy of being involved in the business case preparation process, and what I just wanted to do there was just give you an overview of how your business plan will be constructed. And although they're just presented as they are, there are elements of this which are more important than others, and I draw your attention particularly to the strategic context and encourage you to be mindful. Often when you look at a business plan, that can be 12, 14 pages of it. The strategic context of these programmes has already been determined. All of the themes and calls related to Peace 4 and Interreg are strategically relevant to the region, and they have been designed to be. So you just need to look really at a very succinct way of presenting that and really focusing your energies on maybe the more important components of the plan, which will include really what your project overview and what your project is, the nature, what it wants to achieve, who you'll be working with, why it's important. And that section should include your project cross-border, cross-community partnership arrangements and your ability to meet the required result and output indicators. The need assessment, and we'll be talking about that later on, but the need cannot be overemphasised. So you should really be looking to evidence that there is sufficient demand for the specific results and output proposed in the project. Budget and financial projections. Detailed information on your budget, breakdown, your cash flow, your financial assumptions and your match funding arrangements. Your management. Detailed information regarding how the proposed project delivery plan, governance arrangements and staffing will be managed. Risk assessment, so identifying the potential risks which may impact your project, be they technical, financial, organisational, economic, social or legal, and then a plan to mitigate against any of those risks. And often very, very crucial to a project, particularly including a capital component, what your exit strategy is and how your project will be sustained moving forward. Okay, and I'd just like to emphasise the importance of this business plan, because in previous programmes there has been a business plan presented or prepared and then a subsequent economic appraisal undertaken. That won't be the case in these programmes. The business plan is crucial. It's really your ticket to receiving funding, so it has to be as comprehensive and robust, and you almost have to take it to an economic appraisal standard. Okay. So, the application process. Development workshops will be held at stage 1 and stage 2. And although it is a two-stage process, we will be encouraging people to be mindful of the detail that is going to be required at stage 2, even at stage 1, and you will get guidance as to what that detail is likely to be. There will be a 36 assessment period effected from the last day of the call. Okay, so intention to be that will be shorter than the current programme. It's likely that there will be technical assessment for some aspects of the programme, and you can imagine how that would be necessary in areas such as research, innovation or environment. We've talked about the detailed business plan required for stage 2, and a funding decision will be taken by the steering committee, and that decision will be final. In the current programmes, at times it was necessary, following steering committee decision, to go and seek additional accountable department approval. It is not envisaged that will be the case in this programme. So the Member States have committed to making their decisions within the assessment period as well.
Is there an appeals process?
There will be an appeals process, yeah. Okay. So just to tell you where we are with the programme and give you that update, the Interreg 5 programme has been approved and it's available on the SEUPB website, and some of you may have already seen that. And just to be mindful of the fact it is a very technical document, and to explain that it has been prepared in strict guidance with the Commission's template. So all the other 59 programmes, Interreg programmes across the Member States are presented in identical format. That said, it's not the easiest, most accessible format. So what SEUPB will be doing is preparing a citizen summary, and that will be available on the website imminently. Okay? The Piece 4 programme is in the final stages of approval. And on that basis, the SEUPB have committed to publishing a schedule of calls for Interreg before the end of this month, so that is imminent. The Piece 4 call will follow immediately once the programme has been approved, so that will be very soon also. So to emphasise as well that there will be individual theme workshops looking at the detail of each individual theme, so you will be getting a lot more information prior to submitting your stage 1 to really understand the makeup of those individual themes. Okay? So just to re-emphasise again that these programmes are bound by EU regulations, and those are, if you should wish to look, those are all accessible online, and they will give you just the detail of what has gone in and what governs these programmes. But a lot of that information, I'm right to say, will be included in the programme rules, which will also be available and issued at the time of calls. But if you want to look at that information at this stage, you can do so.